Hello, welcome to the Q. Big tournament last weekend in St. Louis, BBR 3 tournament. First one held outside of Sired Blood's vicinity, that I know of anyway. So we went down there and Parker, my son, he was my partner, so we loaded up on Friday night to head down, and when I get back, we had a YouTube war going here, and it was a BBR 4 playtest. And this is what I get when I get back. Look, I don't know what's going on here, but it's a lot of cleanup here, a lot of cleanup. So what really was going on here is I got a last minute request to bring a BBR 3 map, and I only had one, and I thought I had two. So Parker and I are leaving, and we're out on the road, and it dawns on me in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I think the BBR 3 map is on the table with the YouTube game. So we checked the map that we brought, and sure enough, it's a 2. So we got to turn around and come back. Well, I don't want to be any later, so we're rolling the map up, and pieces are all piling up, and yanked it out, and there they are piled high. So that's the end of my YouTube game right here. But in reality, you know, we only had turn 8 left, and Matt was going to do that roll for Japan for me, and the movements and all that. So I didn't need it, but at the same time, he could have cleaned this up a little better, you know. But anyway, the rest of that game, I went ahead and put all those turns, you know, by the other players in the playlist, so you can watch the end of that game, and I will not give the spoiler away because that was a thriller at the end as well, as a lot of the games were this weekend at the tournament. So as far as, you know, a highlight of the tournament, I'll give you the highlight and the low light here. The highlight was the final game, the final turn. I think it was the final turn. Yeah, it was Japan. Turn 8, they were attacking the U.S. fleet in the Pacific off New Guinea, and Parker was playing the U.S. In Anzac, so all the ships there were his, all the stuff was his, and we had one transport in that fleet that we needed to survive to go up and snag a victory point to bring them, you know, bring the Axis down some more. And Japan came in with just about everything it could. There were some other transports that the U.S. had taken back, some other islands that needed to be cleaned up, or they could do the same thing to you know, China and Hong Kong and all that. So the highlight here of the battle, you know, Japan rolls and, you know, gets a fair amount of hits, but Parker is rolling now, and he's got 13 4s, and we're using these grasshopper dice. You know, the red ones are the 4s, and the set has 10, so he rolls 3 of those, and you know, the blues and greens for the 2s and 3s, and he gets a couple hits. And you know, by this time, all the other tables, well, the other game had finished. I think there was a exhibition game on one table, and it finished. And pretty much everyone's standing around to see how this last turn and how this game's going to end, because you know, it's still up in the air. It was nobody's game, you know, on turn 8. I think the Axis did have 14 or 15 maybe, but some were in jeopardy. But either way, everyone's gathered around. It's intense. You know, he gets a couple hits on defense, and he loads up the 10 red, and he, you know, loads them up in our little dice cup. We took that along, and he rolls them out in the tray, and he drops a 10 spot. All 10 hits. And it was like the hitting a home run in a baseball stadium. You know, everyone was just cheering, and you know, and the look on his face was priceless. You know, it was just amazing. You know, our opponents were not so thrilled. but I think everyone else was pretty happy for him, and so I think that left 2 Japanese units left, and so that naval battle was over. The Anzac transport survived, so it was able to go in and steal Shanghai. I was looking at the map, see which city it went to. So he got Shanghai, and so that was, that made the whole weekend worth it right there. That one roll where he got 10 hits, that was pretty fun. So my battery died right in the middle of talking about my low light of the tournament this weekend, and so I'll start over on that. I think it was day 2. We're done with our game, so we're picking up pieces and and sitting around talking, and we're waiting on 2 games to finish up. And at that point, then I think they were going to do the prize drawing, after all the games were finished up. So we're sitting around, we're talking, and I'll be darned if someone didn't set a can of soda right in the middle of my map. I don't know who wants to disrespect Lieutenant Dan's map like that, but that was just uncool. Right in the middle of Asia is a can of soda, half drunk, and it was disheartening, to say the least. So I kindly removed it from the table, or had it removed, and no damage, no foul, but at the same time, who sets a map or a can of soda on a map, especially one as glorious as Lieutenant Dan's map? So anyway, that was the low light. So pretty cheesy for a low light, I know, but the whole tournament was pretty fun. The difference on this tournament over the previous BBR tournaments is that we were paired up with teams and players that I'd never played before. Or that haven't been in the BBR, excuse me, the BBR tournament, or I haven't played in the BBR tournament, I should say. How many people were there that had been at a BBR tournament? There was 4 or 5 people that had been to the tournament before, and I was fortunate that I only played one of them. The other players, on day 1, 2, and 3 were ones I have not faced. On day 2, one of the 2 players I'd faced before in the tournament. So it was interesting to see, the other people's strategies, how they handled the game flow and the time, because using the timers, on these tournaments, sometimes people crack under the pressure. it just gets to be too much, and the more you play these tournaments with the timers, the less effect it really has on you. I mean, there's plenty of time. I mean, we finished our game, I think, with right at 2 hours left, on our time the first day, and about the same the second day. The final round was a little longer, a little more thought maybe went into it, but we still, I think we had an hour on our side left, and I think they had 30 minutes, so plenty of time. There was never any time crunch, on our side, or any of the games that we were in. So it was fun, and like I said, it was good to see, a bunch of new faces, some people that I'd seen, maybe there was a couple that had YouTube channels, Moose Cow comes to mind, Lieutenant Dan and Pagan, they all have channels and games going on channels and that kind of thing. So it was interesting, to talk with them. Now, Dan and Pagan, they've been at the last 2 tournaments, so I've gotten to know them pretty well. Good guys. Anyway, the interesting part to me on the whole tournament scene was the prize table, because we've got prizes that you would think, from HBG, there's gift certificates and different stuff, and then combat miniatures. There was a whole bunch of little, packs of different stuff like resource markers. There was some smoke markers, that kind of stuff. I think HBG had their fuel markers. Probably can't see that. It's so far away. But there was all sorts of stuff like that. I think there was a box of the grasshopper dice too, that was given away. And those are the kind of the things that you expect to be given away. But on a side note, there was some stuff that other people donated. You know, like Matt Todd, he put in a metallic income tracker, which, you know, I put quite a few tickets in, and I thought, yeah, it'd be great to have that. I can, you know, push it on the wall, and when we've got a full table or whatnot, we can use it. Did not win it, but he had that, and he had some painted units. We'll look at that a little later. Another gentleman that did some painted units, Bert, what is his, Mr. Scrubbert, his handle, you know, and he does some good paint work. He had a bunch of units there, different groupings, and Panzer King. He had donated two different sets of Japanese planes, you know, that were painted up. You know, if you watch his channel, that it's the same format for the paint. Really good looking units. I know Parker was eyeing those Japanese planes, and as well as there was a U.S. set from Mr. Scrubbert with some tanks and mechs and infantry, and he was all fired up about, you know, getting one of those two prizes, and he ended up getting one of the Japanese sets and the U.S. set. So good day for him, and he also picked up Matt Todd's planes. So I'll run those through here a little close up, because, like I said, when I held up that fuel marker, I thought, well, they don't know what that is. I mean, you know what it is by me talking, but holding that up, you can't see that from here. So we'll look at those a little closer. But I was really impressed with the people that made donations. I believe there was another thing that we picked up. I think Parker picked it up. It might have been me, you know, on the prize table. Was a airplane calendar, and it was, you know, a bunch of planes that had been restored. So it was color, you know, modern photographs of these restored, you know, fighters and stuff from World War II. That's pretty cool. Parker's going to put that up in his room down at college. So. And I believe Stephen Gelso donated that. So, I mean, it wasn't just businesses that were donating on the prizes. A lot of individuals did, and that was pretty cool. Especially when you've got a first-time tournament, you know. Most people, you know, wonder how that's going to be. Rob was telling me, I think we had enough originally for 5 or 6 tables, but it ended up being 4 tables, you know, by the time the tournament comes. And I think that's kind of how it was in the beginning. Even with Sired's first tournament, there was more tables available that people wanted to come and then didn't come at the last second. But now to get on to a tournament, you know, there in Atlanta, Georgia for Sired Blood for BBR 4, you're out of luck there. I mean, there's a waiting list, and I don't believe anyone is going to back out of this tournament outside of a last minute, you know, family or job emergency that they just can't make it. So he's got a solid amount of people that will show up for that, and a waiting list beyond that. So glad to see these tournaments, you know, are doing well, and it's a pretty interesting. Like I said earlier, it's interesting to see how the people that are playing these tournaments, you know, how they react and how they handle the situations and the timer, and you know, some people are, you know, are very serious about it, and I maybe irritate them some because I'm joking and laughing and having fun, because number one, that's why I go to these, is to have fun. Sure, number two reason would be, yeah, to win, but fun is more important, you know, playing the game. And we had some good competition, good players. It was nice to meet the new players. My hat will go off to Madman and Moose Cow. That's the team that won the gold. They played an excellent game. You know, like I said, they were the Axis, we were the Allies, and it came down to the very last roll. We took away enough victory points that they were at 12, and if we take one more territory, and then Holland, Belgium. If we take that territory, we win the game. And I believe they outnumbered us in units by 2 or 3, and it was all twos, you know, attacking, defending, and we needed a really good first roll, and we needed them to blank so we could even up the score, but the battle ended up being attrition, and they got hits, we got hits, they got hits, and then before you know it, we don't have any more pieces, and Holland, Belgium stays in the German hands. And so to come down to the very last roll of the game, you know, that decides who wins and who loses, is pretty fun. Of course, you want to be on the winning side, but either way, it's still fun to be on the losing side in a game such as that. So, like I said, hats off to Madman and Moose Cow. Good game, and really they had 3 good games. They were on the point system for each day. I don't know that they were first every day, but the accumulated points put them ahead of us by 5, I think. So they had a good weekend. And speaking of Moose Cow, him and Madman have come up with this. I don't know if they can see that as the glare's too much. Maybe I'll bend it down. It's basically a map overlay of Spain, and it is a Spanish Civil War pregame. So you play it out on here, and then he also gave me the sets of rules that they have, and whether the Nationalists or the Republicans win, that's what goes onto the actual map for the start of 1940, you know, on turn 1. So it may be Republican or it may be Nationalist, and you know, and the Republicans, when Russia is brought into the war by Germany, they join the Russian side. So that's kind of interesting, you know. So you really want those Nationalists to win. If you're the Axis, if you're the Allies, not so much. But that's how it goes. So he emailed me the rules, and he gave me this, you know, this laminate of the Spain map, you know, while we were there. So it'll be interesting to dive into that and see how that works and plays, and there may be a video on that in the future. And let's take a look at some of the prizes that Parker and I picked up. And I will say that Parker was getting a reputation as the cleaner. He got quite a few prizes, and I think he doubled what you know, I drew. Well, I didn't draw. They put the tickets into a bowl, and you know, they pick a name out, and then you basically choose which bowl you want for which prizes, and then whoever's name they pick, you get the prize. You get to come up and claim it. So. He had a good day at the prize bowl, and he had a blast. I know he told me that it was the funnest Axis and Allies experience he's ever had. So if you can come to one of these tournaments, do so, because it's fun. Let's look at those prizes.
So the first prize looking at here was some planes that Matt Todd had painted up. And it is in the late war darker blue Pacific Theater colors, you know, on the tacticals, and then the 2 fighters, which the P-38s saw action on both theaters, but mainly these, I think these are the SBD dive bombers. I'm not sure. I think so. I think they're the Nautilus dive bomber. Those were pretty much only in the Pacific. There wasn't a whole lot of that action going on in the Atlantic, but they are pretty cool. That's one of the ones that was in a bin with a bunch of other items, and Parker was first to get that ticket on that bin, so that he went right for those, because he said those were pretty cool. This was one of the sets that he really wanted. There was 2 of the Japanese sets here, and one in white and one in the dark green. So basically like the Navy versus the Army versions of you know, the Betty bombers, Val dive bombers and the Zero fighters. And then this late war, I think that was a prototype that didn't actually see any action, but nevertheless it is in there as well. And those Panzer King had donated, as prizes to in this tournament. So they were pretty cool, and they also came with these flight stands, but I couldn't put them on the flight stands and get up close to them because the flight stands are all different sizes, or heights, I should say. So pretty darn cool set there. Then Mr. Scrubbert did these last two sets, and this one, the Germans fighters, that's one of the ones that it was the only one that I picked up actually, as a prize. And there's two Stukas, two fighters, two bombers, and there were some more with that set too. But these two Chinese tanks are interesting in the fact that he came to our game. It might have been like in the first turn, and he set those in the mountains, the Himalayas there between China and India, and he said the winner of the game gets these two tanks. So technically, I guess one of those is mine and one of those is Parker's. So we won that game, so we got to claim the Chinese tank prize. So that was completely separate, and he did that at the other tables too. I'm not sure if he did Chinese tanks or if he did something else at each table, but either way, that was pretty cool because he was actually at the tournament, and he donated these prizes. So this is the set that Parker was most excited about, and I don't know if you can see on the side of these Shermans, but there's a name. Each Sherman's got like a name, so he's got a small decal on there with the names, couple mechs, and there's about a dozen more infantry, but you can see, they're all painted up realistically, so it's pretty cool, and they all kind of match the set that he has that he's planned with. He brought those, so people that played on his table on Friday and Saturday, or not Friday and Saturday, Saturday and Sunday while he was there, because he had to leave Sunday night, they got to use his painted pieces. So I missed out on that. That would have been fun, just because I like that kind of thing. So anyway, those are the kind of the pieces. So here's the prize that Parker was looking the most forward to. It was a U.S. Military set, with tanks, mechs, and it looks like there's about maybe 15 more infantry. So it might be like 20 infantry total. Painted up really nice. The interesting thing on the tanks that he thought was pretty cool, if you can see that little sticker or decal on there, each tank has its own name, along with, the star and then the paint job on there. So it is pretty cool. And you look at the infantry, they are painted up realistically, both sides, and very nice, well done job. So all the guys that had donated painted pieces, thank you very much. I know how time consuming painting is because I've done that with some of my units here in the past. We used to do that all the time, painting all these miniatures, and it really takes a long time to get, a few pieces done. So a lot of time and effort, put into these prizes that were donated by some people in the community, which is pretty cool. Put this on here. You can kind of see a closer view. Let me back it up a little bit, maybe, of that overlay for the Spanish Civil War expansion. I've watched his video just the other day, just because he has a video out on this. And then what they do is they take Spain and they have another overlay that goes on the map after this war is done. And Spain has like 3 territories, which oddly enough, the new BBR 4 map, Spain has 3 territories. So it'll be similar to that in scale. So like I said, it'll be interesting to put that on there. The last thing I want to show is these dice I took my set of the Grasshopper hit dice, and then for my dice with the pips on it, I took these, what I call ghost dice, but they're clear. And of course, everyone's like, "Oh, where'd you get those?" It's like, I can't remember. I know where I got them, but I can't remember the name. Well, here's the name. It is a clear with black dice block dice made by Chessex, and I picked that up at Tabletop, a local game store here. If you have a local game store and they don't have those, you could probably find those online. It's 12 frosted 16 millimeter D6 dice. So there you have it. If you're looking for them, there they are. And then finally, the last thing I want to say is it's thanks to Rob. His channel is the Chaplain, and he is the gentleman that put on this tournament, came up with the idea, worked with Sire, about all the details and how to go about doing things. And I think it was a pretty good event. Pretty much everyone, enjoyed it. I think everyone that I talked to said that they definitely are going to come back. We're going to try it again next year. I think Rob said in June next year. He is works for the school district, so it was a school spring break at this point. So he wants to do it a little later next year. So school's out. So I think maybe donate a little more time. And obviously, too, the other thing that you have to look at when you do a tournament like this and it's a success is next year more people want to come. I think the idea is to find maybe a bigger space, a bigger venue maybe. You can get a couple more tables, even if you increase it by one table, that's at least 4 guys. Some of the teams this past weekend had 3 people on them. So, there's quite a few people that really want to do this. And then, if you haven't done it, I encourage you to jump on board. Find one that's close if travel's an issue. Atlanta is where the next BBR 4 is going to be, and any future ones that Sired Blood puts on. So having one here in the middle of the country is kind of good for those that can't make it to Atlanta, or previously couldn't make it to Los Angeles, where the first two BBR tournaments were. So big shout out, thanks for putting that on, Rob. It was a blast, and looking forward to next year. And until next time, keep rolling dice.